दिल्ली में एक जगह है एक्शन फॉर ऑटिज्म, तो मैरी बरुआ जो है उसकी फाउंडर है, और इट इज ऑलवेज ए प्लेयर टू लिसन टू हर। बहुत अच्छा लगता है सुन करके जब भी बात करते हैं, एंड एवरी टाइम आई लिसन टू हर आई गेट टू नो न्यू थिंग्स। मेरे जो डिपॉजिट्स में और चीजें आती जाती हैं, तो मैं ज्यादा देर आप लोगों के बीच में नहीं रहूंगा, एंड आई विल इनवाइट मैरी टू कंटिन्यू। प्लीज मैम, वेलकम।
Thank you so much, Gupta ji, and thank you, Alok, for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. My pleasure.
You have been organizing such amazing discussions and workshops, and this ये वाला जो की है, this is a very important one. But you know, हम सोच रहे हैं कि I was looking at the speakers, इतने सारे eminent speakers हैं, उसके बाद हम अभी क्या बोलेंगे पता नहीं। हम जो भी बोलेंगे, I'm sure it's already been covered by somebody or the other. But I'll just share a few thoughts on this. So, अभी तो जो session है, that is about self advocacy and sexuality. तो before I start, and again हम जो भी बोल रहे हैं, maybe ये covered हो चुका है, but since I don't know, I'll just go through what I had to say. एक है कि जब हम sexual advocacy के बारे में बात करेंगे, हमें context को याद रखना होगा, because sexual advocacy is not one static thing. It is something that is determined कि किन लोगों के साथ हो रहा है, किन सोसाइटी में हो रहा है, सोसाइटी का बिलीफ सिस्टम्स क्या है, you know, सब कुछ लेकर, you know, just to give an example, in many societies, particularly in the West or कुछ Eastern, Far Eastern societies maybe, and even in India, कुछ parts में, in the Northeast, for instance, there is a lot of what should I say, sexuality is much more liberal. तो वहाँ पर dating is very common. So when you're a teenager, you date. As you are 21 years old, आप date करते हो, आप opposite gender or same gender if you like them, उसके साथ you can meet them socially. तो वहाँ पर a certain amount of sexual tension का dissipation होता है. उस तरीके से हम relationships form करते हैं, हम partners भी मिल सकता है. But that is something that is not common in India. By and large हमारे culture में वो है नहीं. है भी तो शहरों में है, कुछ large towns में है, नहीं तो हमारे इसमें हम अपने आप जाकर किसी को meet करेंगे और उसको meet करते रहेंगे, फिर decide करेंगे, शादी करेंगे, और शादी नहीं करेंगे, उसके साथ रहेंगे. It's a very rare thing. Our whole society is about our parents deciding my sexuality. That is really what it is in our country. हमारा parents decide करता है हमारा sexuality. When I will get married, when I will have a sexual partner, because a sexual partner only comes through marriage. वैसे भी आता है, but acceptability, social acceptability में देखें तो sexual partner only comes through marriage. तो ये context तो हमको दिमाग पे रखना होगा when we talk about sexuality and advocacy for our young people. हमारा जो societal norms है. The other thing जो हमको ध्यान रखना होगा that हमारा common discourse में being sexual is seen as bad. If you're sexual, then you're bad, right? हम यदि sexual experiences चाहते हैं, then it is a sign of a bad person, and which is because anything to do with sex and sexuality is taboo. हमारे country में it is still considered taboo. तो हम यदि कोई sexual experiences desire करें, तो उसका मतलब है हम एक बुरा individual है. और ये बहुत ही ironical है, because we are one of the most populous nations in the world. हमसे ज़्यादा population खाली चाइना का ही है. So we are one of the most populous nations, or we are a populous nation because we indulge in a lot of sex. Sex नहीं होगा तो हमारा population नहीं बढ़ेगा. And it's so ironic that Indians indulge in the most sex, but wanting sex or desiring sexuality, having desire, even if I don't do the act, हमारा desire होना भी बुरा माना जाता है. It wasn't always so. it became more strengthened with the Britishers. वो आकर और strengthen कर दिया. हमारा पहले ऐसा ही नहीं था, but now this is the world that we live in. और ये जो है, ये what I'm saying is not to do with disability. This is to do with society in general, right? So naturally, this is the society that people with disabilities also have to contend with. हमारा जो mores है, the social mores है, the social beliefs है, practices है, all of this is, colored by these understanding that we have of sexuality. As far as people with disabilities are concerned, one of the most common questions that parents come with is not about, will my daughter or son have a sex life? Will they ever have a partner? It's not that. It is mostly about how to stop my child from masturbating or touching himself or herself, or so any kind of self-touching, self-exploration, masturbating. ये तो उसके लिए आते हैं. और if it's a girl, तो menstruation होगा, क्या करना है, खाली हमें बता दो, क्या हम बंद कर दे सकते हैं? That is the other thought. And the only other reason that people come is when there is a case of sexual abuse. If a child is abused, if a person with disability suffers sexual abuse, then that is the other reason when they come. Of course, it's a reality, like Professor Simi just mentioned. And I think that was such an important point, that I know multiple cases where a person with disability has been, and I'm talking, हम जब disability बोल रहे हैं, I'm not talking about physical disability. हम developmental disabilities के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. People with intellectual impairment, autism, etc. So, जब a person with disability has been sexually abused, sometimes parents pretend ये नहीं हुआ है. Because in our society, it is not just about disability. In our society, even if you don't have disability, if you're a victim of sexual abuse, you're the culprit. आप यदि victim है sexual abuse का, you are the culprit. You are the one who's stigmatized. आपको ही stigmatize किया जाता है. जो किया है उसको नहीं, victim को stigmatize किया जाता है. So you can't blame parents, whether they have a disabled kid or a non-disabled kid, जब वो छुपाने का कोशिश करते हैं, because उसका very few parents have the courage to go out and fight, because they live with in-laws, brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, neighbors, जो उनके life को एकदम खत्म कर देंगे. So that is the reason why Professor Simi mentioned something very important. And this is the reason why families छुपाते हैं. Because, because of the stigma that is attached to disability. ऐसे भी तो कोई sexual abuse होता है तो stigmatize करते हैं victim को. और जब disability है, we cannot escape from the fact that there is huge stigma even today in the 21st century, right? बहुत ही stigma है disability के साथ, right? उसीलिए जब कोई disabled child family में रहता है, the family thinks they're finished. So, because of the huge stigma that is attached, that also affects the way we view sexuality and people with disabilities, especially developmental disabilities. But इसमें of course physical disabilities भी आ जाता है. एक है, sorry, let me just step back. हम disabled लोगों को largely two तरीके से देखते हैं as far as sexuality is concerned. एक तो देखते हैं as that they are asexual. इनका कोई sexual needs है ही नहीं. ये बच्चे हैं, ये lifelong children है. So there is no understanding that they are also sexual beings. And कभी-कभी parents unknowingly, parents ने everybody, even teachers, everybody they propagate this thing कि ये तो बच्चे ही है. We treat ऐसे करके बात करते हैं. 25 साल के लड़के के साथ में ऐसे करके बात करेंगे. हम कोई non-disabled 25 साल का वैसे नहीं बात करेंगे. But with a disabled 25-year-old हम ऐसे करके बात करेंगे, right? Because we see them as children. And because we see them as children, कभी-कभी their understanding, वो self advocacy जो करेगा उसके पहले their understanding of their own being and sexuality is very confused, because I'm say a 30-year-old girl or I'm a 30-year-old man, right? I have, even as a person with disability, I have sexuality. But मेरे parents वैसे नहीं सोचते हैं. तो मेरा mother और my father हमें ऐसा करके सोते हैं रात को. Can you imagine how confusing it is for the individual? एक non-disabled child will say, क्या कर रहे हो मामा, छोड़ो, अब पापा छोड़ो ना. A non-disabled child would be able to say that. Most kids with disability will not, they won't even know that I have a voice. कि हमें ऐसा करके और अच्छा नहीं लगता, अब छोड़ो. हम opportunity दोगे तो जरूर, they will. Sometimes when I ask my son, I feel like lying down with you, can I lie down? वो कभी कभी बोलेगा हाँ, sometimes बोलेगा no. Because वो अपना agency use कर रहा है. वो अपना agency use करने का हम opportunity नहीं देते हैं disabled लोगों को. So sometimes their understanding of their own sexuality is very confused, right? तो एक तो हम देखते हैं as asexual beings, as lifelong children. All their lives, वो 30 साल में भी स्कूल जा रहा है. बहुत जगह में वोकेशनल सेंटर जाते हैं, मगर बहुत जगह में आप देखोगे वो स्कूल ही स्कूल चलता है. 40 साल हो गया तभी भी स्कूल में बैठा है. Because we see them as lifelong children. तो वो तो एक तरीके देखना है. The other one is that people with disabilities, particularly developmental disabilities, are often viewed as sexually threatening. And we've had families who've come and said, अभी तो मेरा बेटा बड़ा हो गया है, हमारा बहुत डर लगता है. So we said, क्यों डर लगता है? नहीं, उसका घर में बहन भी है. ऐसे बहन है तो क्या हुआ? नहीं, वो कुछ कर देगा. I mean, just because a person has a disability, they're seen as this rapist, as this, somebody who will sexually molest other people. So this whole way that we see people with disabilities, हम जब sexual advocacy के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, when a person has grown up with this kind of thing that ये कुछ कर देगा, sexually threatening, right? Schools में होता है. How often teachers have said that अभी तो because inclusive ये शुरू हुआ है, तो teachers का जितना teachers, counselors, psychologists, जितने उनके negative misconceptions है अभी पता चलता है. Because everybody has nice jargon that we can use. But actual practice में जब बात करते हैं तब पता चलता है कितना negativity है अंदर, कितना stigmatizing सोच दिमाग में है. तो स्कूल में बोलेंगे that person, that boy, how can I sit him next to the girls? So what if he sits next to the girls? हम typical बच्चे के साथ कभी बोलते हैं? कोई non disabled बच्चे के साथ बोलते हैं इसको क्यों इसके पास बैठने देंगे, कुछ हो जाएगा. But जो disabled है, we see them as sexually threatening कि हम पास भी नहीं बैठने दे सकते हैं, right? And of course, as far as sexuality is concerned, तो I said it doesn't exist. If it's a male, हम सोच लेते हैं sexuality के बात नहीं है, marriage, शादी करवा दे. And शादी के बाद जब करते हैं, if you really dig deep, you will find that parents इसलिए नहीं सोच रहे हैं कि maybe शादी से कोई sexual needs fulfill होगा. They see it as a panacea, as a lifelong free caretaker आ गया है, जो इसको all their life इसको देख लेगा, right? So now my son will have somebody who will look after her. उसको तो तनख्वाह भी नहीं देना है, सुबह शाम का खाना दे दो और कभी नया कपड़ा खरीद दो, तनख्वाह की भी जरूरत नहीं है, as a lifelong caretaker, right? And I'm saying this because we don't think of a woman with a disability getting married off. Why? Right? Because the woman, of course, doesn't matter. The woman can be the caretaker, but she doesn't have any. इसका तो support का जरूरत है, woman का support का जरूरत नहीं है. But having said that, we have to acknowledge कि parents जब ऐसे करते हैं, because they come from a very negative place that society puts them in. Parents जब ऐसे करते हैं, ये society से आता है, because every day they deal with societal stigma. And as a parent, I know how much of societal stigma we dealt with, right? And not everybody can fight like I can. कुछ पेरेंट्स है जो फाइट कर सकते हैं, सब कोई नहीं कर सकते हैं. So there is so much of societal stigma, right? Very little support, very little services. आलोक, आपको तो पता होगा services कितना कम है. There must be so many people you are saying no to, right? So for many parents, it's a very lonely struggle with very little support. Because कौन parent को पता है कि एक disabled बच्चे के साथ क्या करना है? When a parent is expecting a child, वो सोचते हैं बस और एक बच्चा ऐसा ही आएगा, बस उसको कर लेंगे. So when the child has a disability, they have no idea what to do, right? And so, and there is very little support that they get. But so that is one aspect जो हमको बहुत ही ध्यान रखना है when we are talking about self advocacy and sexuality for self advocates. So having said that, as far as when we come to self advocates, it is very important for every self advocate to understand that, and for us as people who will be supporting them, हमें acknowledge करना है that as self advocates, they have a right to sexual well-being, just like all of us. They have a right to sexual well-being. They also have a right to enjoy sexuality, just like all of us. Just like non-disabled people have a right to enjoy sexuality, disabled people also have a right to enjoy sexuality, right? And I'm saying this because when disabled people express a desire, because society mein hai, wo log dekhta hai, they also feel that I want to have a boyfriend, I want to have a girlfriend, I want to have a wife, I want to have a husband. Very often we make fun of them. Acha, tera bhi hoga? Kya sochna hai tu? So we start making fun of them, right?
I think she has some network issue. She will come. बात तो बहुत सही थी. इनका नेटवर्क इशू. She will join. Yeah. फिर गई. I think she has some issue in the internet. Gupta sir?
हाँ सर, मेरे को भी यही लग रहा है कि नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम हुआ है.
हाँ हाँ, आ जाएंगी, आ गई. She has reached. Mary ma'am, can you hear me? Yeah. I think unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Sorry, the power went off and it's come back again.
No issue. Please.
So, so where was I? I was saying, So, trying to recall. Yeah. So, when we talk about self advocacy, हम तब ये सोच रहे हैं कि these will be people with disabilities themselves who will understand their sexuality, अपना sexuality समझेगा, अपना right समझेगा और अपने और बाकी और disabled लोगों के लिए वो advocate कर सकते हैं, right? So when we are talking about this, we have to I was just trying to get my thoughts together. So the एक तो जो हमें करना होगा उसके पहले I should have talked about it doesn't matter. So so one of the things that we have to think about is that they have to have access to information about sexuality, right? Very often in our society, information about sex and sexuality and the sexual processes, इसके बारे हम बात नहीं करते हैं. And forget about disability, like I said, हम जब cultural context के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, हम non-disabled लोगों के भी साथ बोल रहे हैं कि it is true that parents rarely talk to their children about sexuality, right? हम disabled लोग के बारे नहीं बोल रहे, I'm talking about non-disabled, right? Parents do not talk to, in India, parents do not talk to our children about sexuality. And for most non-disabled people, their knowledge of sexuality and sexual mores, etc., आता है from peers, from books, from the internet, but mostly from peers. And that's a reality, right? Every study has shown that they have not got their sexual information from parents. It's come from peers. Now, when we are talking about disability, there is very little information that disabled people will get from their peers, right? And the information they will get will often be incomplete, right? And for some people with disabilities, like say those with autism, they will not also talk to their peers about it because they will have difficulty in that social, finding out and information sharing. तो एक तो सबसे बड़ा जो जरूरी है कि information is something that they have to be given. So as self advocates, उनको भी ये understanding देना है that you have a right to receive information on facts about health and sexuality, right? This is something they have a right to get. They have to have a right to information. They have a right to information which is an easy to understand format, whether it is through pictures or through some other method. It will have to be an easy to understand format, जैसे कि they understand what it is about. हम अभी तो NEP में तो बहुत सेक्सुअल एजुकेशन के बारे में बोला गया है, हमारा सेक्स एजुकेशन स्कूल्स में पहले भी बोला गया था, बट वी नो दैट दिस इज नॉट गोइंग टू हैपन इन अ हरी. NEP में बोल रहा है we'll do it in phases, and because as a society we have a strong reluctance to talk about sex. तो ये जो information जो हमें देना जरूरी है, this is something, one of the first things that we have to talk about, that how do we get information across to them, and when they come and tell us that I have a right to information on sex and sexuality, how do we do that? The whole thing about sexual education. दूसरा चीज जो very important is that to help them learn about जिसको हम बोलते हैं bodily integrity, कि हमारा body है, this is my body, to help them understand that, right? And if we, and I know that very often we keep reading about, and there is a lot of this, हम जो पहले बोल रहे थे ना, sexual predator के belief है. Every study has shown that where there is sexual abuse happening, the population जिसका abuse सबसे ज़्यादा होता है are people with disabilities, because they're easy targets, right? So sexual abuse is very, very high. So to give them that because when they do something, it becomes a huge thing that they're predators, but nobody stops to see that they are the most abused population around. So वो जो respect for bodily integrity बहुत जरूरी है for them to learn. उसको as sex advocates for sexuality, they have to be helped to learn that कोई हमें touch नहीं कर सकता है without my permission, right? कोई हमें touch नहीं करेगा, कोई हमसे touch नहीं करवाएगा उसके body को, because even my every part of my body, my hand and everything is mine. No part of my body will be used in a way that is not right, that I don't want, right? So that is very important. And in this thing, one of the very important things is that to teach them about privacy, something जो हम तो उसके ऊपर बहुत focus करते हैं, especially because with people with autism, the whole concept of privacy is so abstract that हमें बहुत concretize करके we have to give them that understanding, and they get it. But ये privacy का concept सिखाना बहुत जरूरी है, because, and this is true with intellectual disability also, because very often हम देखते हैं कि they will touch themselves or masturbate in public, right? ये क्यों करता है? Simply because they have not understood. उसको आप पूछोगे तो बोल देगा, ये यहाँ नहीं करना है, घर में करना है, बाथरूम में करना है. But what that really means, that whole abstract concept of privacy, that is something that people with autism have a lot of difficulty with, and actually a lot of people with intellectual disability don't get it. आप पूछोगे तो they will tell you the right things, but वो rote learning कर लिया है, वो by rote सीख लिया है, ये शब्द हमको बोलना है, हमें कोई पूछे तो हम बोलेंगे कहाँ करना है, वहाँ करना है, but actually वो क्या, उसका meaning क्या है, they don't get. So this whole thing of helping them learn about privacy, or when we are teaching them about privacy, then we can help them learn about अपना bodily जो integrity है, कि because this is my body is my private zone, so that can be a part of that. तो ये तो बहुत important चीज है, that is self advocates, that they can learn that this is my body, this is my this thing, and I can do what I want with my body in private areas, right? And only people I want can touch me, others can't touch me. So this whole thing of bodily integrity is very important. Also, they can be helped to learn that they can make friends. Very often क्या होता है with people with disabilities, if they are talking to somebody from a different gender, even amongst people with disabilities, parents नहीं करने देते हैं. So if they're traveling in a car and there are 3 or 4 people with disabilities, and उसमें both genders है, so often parents are very worried. So we have to help parents understand that they have a right to companionship and friendship with people of all genders, just like you and I have had that right. Just because they have a disability does not make them less. उन लोग को भी वो right है जो हमें है, to have friends, to make friendships, to have relationships, because this feeling है कि वो friendship करेगा तो बस sex कर लेगा. नहीं, sex बहुत बाद में आता है. First, they have to have friends. They need to have friends, right? So that is a very important thing, that as advocates, that they have to learn that they have a right to have friends, to have also have romantic relationships. And sometimes their romantic relationships just remains at the level of romance. उससे आगे बढ़े तो बढ़ेगा, नहीं बढ़े कोई बात नहीं. But there can be romantic relationships, right? So, and also हम जब उसके बारे में बोल रहे हैं, then we have to help them how to pursue, how to approach, what to do when they have a romantic relationships. Because sometimes हमारे counseling में भी we had to talk to couples married, right? वहाँ पर how to take the relationship forward. Even in sexuality, sometimes there have been difficulties. Even when one has been a person with disability and the other has been a typical person, sometimes they need counseling over there also. So in sexual advocacy, they can know that हम इसके लिए help seek कर सकते हैं. I have a right to seek for help. Just like in our marriages, कोई difficulties होता है, marriage counselor के पास जाते हैं. हमारा relationship में कुछ होता है, हम counselor के पास जाते हैं. Disabled people have to learn that they also have that right. Right? And that they can choose partners of the opposite sex and also the same sex. We have to accept that disabled लोगों के अंदर भी there are lots of people who are, come from the lesbian, gay, other sex partnerships. There are people we know who are queer and disabled. So उसको भी हमें accept करना है that they can have partners from, and they have the right to partners, and they can seek partners from whatever sex they want. And also, if they want to partner with another person with disability, they can. Because kabhi-kabhi kya hota hai, this happens with professionals and it happens with parents. The feeling that a person with disability, especially a male, जो काफी functioning है, वो partner ढूंढ रहा है तो दूसरा disabled से नहीं करने दो, उसको एक typically किसी को ले आओ, a non-disabled किसी को ले आओ. But if that person wants another disabled partner, they have a right to that, and that is something that we have to help them learn कि हमें ये सब चीज के ऊपर right है. They also, हम जब ये bodily integrity के बारे में बोल रहे हैं, some of them they want to go ahead and have sex and they do, right? So तब we have to help them learn that whether to give consent or not. Consent देने में उसका repercussions क्या हो सकता है. It's like, we help many parents, people with disabilities understand the concept of marriage, right? And I'm just giving this as an example. There are a lot of young people with disabilities who are wanting to get married. And a reason why they want to get married is because in our society, the pressure, every individual का marriage का pressure is very strong, right? शादी करना ही है. इस generation में अभी जो लोग 20s में है, 25, 26, इन लोग में हम shift देख रहे हैं. Many have decided हमें शादी नहीं करना है, क्या करेंगे शादी करके? But उससे जो older generation है, the pressure for marriage is very strong. And this whole thing about marriage is बहुत propagate होता है through our popular media. हमारे फिल्म्स में देखिए, हमारे फिल्म्स में शादी तो करना ही है, और शादी बहुत मजेदार चीज है. नया कपड़े पहनते हैं, डांस करते हैं, बहुत कुछ होता है, खाना पीना होता है. So it seems like a marriage is a wonderful thing. So one of the things in self-advocacy is helping them understand what it means, because many of them haven't got that understanding that shadi is wonderful. Of course, if you want to get married, you can. But what is marriage about? Usse pehle to help them understand that. Marriage is about having a partner, yes. Marriage is, of course, having sex, yes. Marriage is about having responsibility. Marriage is about planning my budget for every month. हमारे पास इतना पैसा है, इसका budget plan करना. Marriage is about taking responsibility जब मेरा partner बीमार होगा, उसका देखभाल करना. Right? Marriage is about paying the electricity bill, paying the house tax. तो शादी का जो understanding many of them don't have. So it's important to help self-advocates understand that also. Also to understand about sexuality, that sexuality is a beautiful thing. Sex is a beautiful thing, not sexuality. Sex is a beautiful thing. And it's a very enjoyable thing. But when we have sex, you can also have babies, right? So if you're going to have babies, and many of them think, I want to have a baby. So having a baby ka matlab kya hai, right? Having a baby, and this is something actually, you know what, disabled ladko ke and ladkiyon ke liye nahi hai. Ye all young people ko batana hai. Most people go into marriage and babies bina samajh ke ki wo kya hai. That babies mean lot of responsibility. And I know young couples who have said, oh God, I never realized that having a baby is so much of responsibility. So to understand that having a baby means raat ko jaag ke raho. After the baby is born, many months you stay awake. Uska khana banao, usko pilao, uska potty safa karo, susu safa karo, to understand that whole concept. So that is also a part of all of this, for them to understand. Jaise ki when they are taking a decision, supported decision making kar raha hai, we help them through all of this. Ki you want to do this? We are not saying yes or no. Understand the whole thing and then take a decision. And when we do it in a positive way, they think, they understand, just like all of us do, right? To also understand that when I have sex, I can also practice safe sex. That is also a very important part of sexuality. That when they want to have sex, that there is something called safe sex. You do not always just go and have sex. What are the things that you need to do? So that is all. And it is important for both the boys and the girls to know. So that the boy knows that I can have safe sex, the girl knows that I need to have safe sex, right? And what was the other thing I wanted to do? Yeah, so basically to understand all of that and to understand that hum choices le sakte hain. That even in sexuality and relationships, there is a choice I can make. It's not a black and white ki hum ye kare aur wo kare. Hum ye nahi kare aur wo nahi kare. Because there is often a belief ki ye nahi karna hai, they should not get married, they should not have children, they should not have sex, or we will do it and then we will take care of them. But उन लोगों को भी हमें opportunity देना है अपना choices लेने के लिए. But जब हम choices बोल रहे हैं, हम बोल रहे हैं informed choices. So informed choices का मतलब पूरा समझ से, we help them understand using visuals, using pictures, help them understand the whole thing so that they can take the decisions they want to make about sexuality and relationships. One of the things that we is important, हम जब sexuality के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, is that a lot of nowadays everybody has access to a mobile. A lot of our young disabled youngsters, सबके पास mobile है और सब internet में जाता है. It's very important as a part of sexuality. What should I say? Sexuality information. कि उन लोग को समझाना about websites, because one of the things that has been happening a lot is बहुत लोग ऐसे websites में जाते हैं where it is not safe, right? And some of them are pornographic websites. There is no harm in looking at pornography, but to understand that there is, how much of pornography do I look at? Do I spend 16 hours a day? I just, I can look at half an hour, I can do, but not, I don't spend 16 hours obsessively. Then it is, whether you have disability or not, when you do that, then you need help, right? But more important than that, many of these websites are entrapment sites. Entrapment, like फंसाने के लिए, right? तो वो education भी इस ज़माने में देने का बहुत ज़रूरी है, because a lot of them on their mobiles, they are now going to sites like this, and some of them have their own little bank accounts because they're earning, whether in a vocational center or in a real job. They all have their little stipend and all they get, so they can get into trouble for that. So wo education, a part of sex education, that part of education is also very important to give, right? So I just want to end by saying that people with disabilities, if we give them the right information, the right support, वो भी चूज कर सकते हैं हम किसके साथ जाएं, किसके साथ नहीं रहे, हमारा privacy. Oh yeah, something I forgot. Sorry, two things I forgot. हम privacy के बारे में बात कर रहे थे. So एक चीज जब हम self advocacy के बारे कर रहे हैं ना, it is very important to help parents understand that हम जो bodily integrity के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, कभी कभी पेरेंट्स डोंट गेट इट दैट ये जो बोल रहे हैं ना, आई ऑलवेज सी देम एज चिल्ड्रन, तो डू नॉट वायोलेट देयर प्रिवेसी. तो वो जब अडल्ट हो गया है ना, तो क्या होता है, वंस दे गेटिंग ओल्डर, हम उसका फिजिकल सी, इफ वी एक्सपेक्ट देम टू अंडरस्टैंड सेक्सुअलिटी, हमारा 30 साल का बेटा चेंज कर रहे हैं, हम बिना नॉकिंग उसके कमरे में आ रहे हैं, जा रहे हैं. थिंक अबाउट दैट. वो कपड़ा चेंज कर रहा है कमरे के अंदर, हम बिना नॉक करके कमरे से आ रहे हैं, जा रहे हैं, वो तो खाली डिसेबल्ड है. तो ये एक चीज बहुत होता है, राइट? बिकॉज इट इज देयर प्रिवेसी दैट वी आर वायलेटिंग. इफ दे आर ग्रोइंग अप विद देयर प्रिवेसी बीइंग वायलेटेड, हाउ कैन दे बी सेल्फ एडवोकेट्स? कैसे सेल्फ एडवोकेसी करेगा? So it is very important to help parents to see this, that as they are approaching the puberty, उसके बाद कमरे में जाना है, knock, tell them that हम आ रहे हैं. Don't just walk in and walk out. And the other thing is that जब bodily integrity के बारे में बोल रहे हैं, again ये parents के साथ बोलना बहुत जरूरी है कि not to keep sharing their pictures without their permission on websites and things. Because यदि हमारा पिक्चर हम खा रहे हैं, कुछ कर रहे हैं घर में, और थोड़ा अजीब से कुछ कर रहे हैं, लोग हमारा पिक्चर लेकर वेबसाइट कहीं फेसबुक में कहीं डाल दें, हमारा अच्छा लगेगा? नहीं लगेगा ना. कोई पब्लिक में कोई कर लेता है तो बहुत बुरा लगता है. हम कोई अजीब तरीके से खा रहे थे तो मेरा पिक्चर लेकर डाल दिया. Now as parents we very often keep putting pictures of our children doing things that हम अपने लिए नहीं चाहेंगे. So that is also a violation of their privacy. So I just wanted to mention that. And the last thing I quickly wanted to mention is that about two things. Menstruation. Very often, parents feel, as and understandably, हम बहुत समझते हैं क्यों parents ऐसे करते हैं. With girl children, mothers get very bothered about their periods. जब periods हो रहा है, and many of them keep talking about getting a hysterectomy done. I don't know, Alok, how much you experience this, but you do, na? Ha. So we experience this a lot, and it's very important to help them understand कि आप ठीक तरीके से सिखाओगे ना, your child will learn to manage her periods. If they can manage their toileting, which they do, हम टॉयलेट करने, सुसु करने जाते हैं 10 बार दिन में, and I'm managing. हम पॉटी करके अपने आप को क्लियर कर रहे हैं. Every day I'm managing. Why can't I manage my periods? हम ठीक से सिखाएंगे तो they all learn. So this is the other thing. Again, when you're talking about self-advocacy, to do a hysterectomy on the girls, because, and ये जो hysterectomy करने के बारे में बात करते हैं, not because they will not be able to manage their periods. Very often they say, so that they will not get abused. Hysterectomy करने से the girl is not, it's not that they are not getting abused. जब वो abused होता है, किसी को पता नहीं चलता है. A girl who's had a hysterectomy done can be raped repeatedly and nobody will know. So that's one of the most soul-crushingly terrible things that have happened. And I know many parents who've done it because doctors have told them. जैसे diagnosis हुआ है लड़की का कि इसका जैसे puberty होगा ना, इसको hysterectomy कर दीजिए. So parents don't know. The doctors, I know parents who actually come and said, हमें तो पता नहीं था आप जो बोल रहे हैं अभी, हमें तो डॉक्टर ने बोला तो इसका hysterectomy कर दो. So they reach puberty and hysterectomy is done. I just wanted to mention that जब हम self advocacy कर रहे हैं, I mean, if I am a woman and my body part has been taken out without my permission, and something that is so natural to women, हमसे वो हटाया दिया गया है, then it's not really self-advocacy. So this is again something that very important to share with parents as a part of self-advocacy. So this is the other point that I forgot to mention. So when we are doing self-advocacy as people with disabilities, I have to feel respected, and I have to be taught to be able to demand that respect for myself when I'm doing self-advocacy for sexuality. Thank you. I'll end here.
Gupta sir. Unmute yourself, sir, please. Unmute yourself, sir. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mary. कि आपने जो बातें बताई तो एक्चुअली बिल्कुल बेसिक बातें. We fly in the air and we never thought of from where to start. तो आपने जो बातें बताएंगे ना कि हम कहाँ से शुरू कर सकते हैं, कैसे शुरू कर सकते हैं, तो वो बहुत, I think it will go a long way for people to use them and apply them and train person with disability and train the teachers also. So thank you very much, Mary. Any questions? The house is open for questions or queries or comments, please.
Yeah.
कोई भी कुछ पूछना चाहता है, please. Yes.
Sujata ji, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I've unmuted. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful, informative session with us. I just wanted to add something to what you had spoken about, pornography. I felt, I mean, this is something that it's my opinion that maybe it would help if we made them realize that pornography is also a film. It's not a realistic portrayal of what naturally happens between two people, and that it is actually edited, and it is, so you watch it like you watch a film, even if you have to. It's not something that that's what I feel would help to put forth how that pornography is not something to consume on a very large scale basis.
True. I agree.
Anybody else?
I don't think there are any questions.
There are the many.
Actually, it was so simple and so comprehensive.
Ma'am, this topic is so, it makes us to think many times, to ask or to open our mouth and speak up. So when the people, मैं देखता हूँ जब भी मतलब कि when you take such topic और वहाँ पर audience जो है चुप हो जाते हैं, so they have a lot many questions, but
I know.
inside कि कहाँ से वो
Alok, in our workshops, आप जो बोल रहे हैं बहुत सही बात है. हमारे workshops में, in many of our workshops, we often have a section on sexuality. We always do that because हम जानते हैं कि this is something that parents have a lot of questions about, मगर पूछते नहीं मानते हैं. और वो workshop के बाद हम जब questions मांगते हैं, कोई नहीं पूछते हैं. जब break होता है, तब parents आ जाते हैं questions के साथ. And see, and that's the social situation जो हमको ध्यान में रखना है.
Yes.
But parents are very uncomfortable about talking about it. And I shouldn't say parents, professionals, everybody.
Everyone.
Talking about sexuality is very, very disconcerting हमारे society में. लोग बोल नहीं सकते हैं.
Taboos और stigma की बात करते हैं ना.
Very big taboo.
वही चीजें यहाँ पर है कि मैं ऐसा बोलूँगा तो लोग क्या कहेंगे. इसको भी नहीं मालूम है. Don't know this also. ये छोटी-छोटी बातें पूछ रहे हैं आपको. और जबकि खुद को नहीं पता होता जो ऐसा कहने वाला है. They also the one who is saying that कि we don't know this. उसको खुद नहीं मालूम होता. तो ये changes will come. Changes will occur.
अभी changes थोड़ा होना शुरू हुआ है. In the last 10 years or so.
Yes,
there
yes,
is- there's something
10
called
years.
Anupama who's got a question.
और अभी जो NEP 2020 आया है उसके लिए भी कहा है कि it should be fully implemented by 2030.
Yeah.
They have given a timeline, and I think it's the first policy जिसमें timeline उन्होंने fix की है for different aspects. So any more questions?
Yeah, Anupama, somebody called Anupama.
Yeah, hi ma'am, good evening.
Hi.
It's always so delightful and enlightening to listen to you.
Thank you.
So ma'am, Manovikas has done an excellent job by organizing this 3 days seminar. But autistic children are very different, ma'am. Most of the times they have very limited vocabulary and language and communication. So given this thing, where can we find more resources to teach them all these concepts of privacy and their changing bodies? And I also feel that, during the pandemic, it so happened that some parents came together and they opened up about the problems they faced when their children were growing up. And it really helped us a lot. But if we look for professionals and other kind of guidance, it's really I have not been able to, we have not been able to find any actually.
Anupama, like I mentioned, we do it at every workshop at Action for Autism. We talk about sexuality. But to go back to your question, you said कि जो autism है जिन लोगों का उसका limited vocabulary and language है, so that means expressive communication. Right. So Anupama, does that mean that they don't understand? Receptive understanding nahi hai?
Yeah, you have to be when you are making a PPT for them or making any resource for them to teach them a concept such all these abstract concepts of personal space, privacy, social, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. You have to be really careful what kind of how much language you are putting up. So you can use pictures, but of course all children are different. But children who have limited communication and understanding, then it becomes really difficult to draft something for them, create a resource for them.
See, again, I just wanted to stress that limited communication is not limited understanding. That is something you really have to keep in mind. Just because I'm not able to express says nothing about my understanding, right? So this is something that we keep repeating over and over again. Sometimes somebody who has a lot of communication may have less understanding than somebody who does not speak at all, right? So ये आपको बहुत ध्यान में रखना है. And also you don't have to make PowerPoints to help them understand about privacy. आप जब autistic लोग के बारे में बात कर रहे हो, PowerPoint से वो जितना सीखेगा experientially आप सिखाओ तो उससे 10 times ज़्यादा सीखेगा. PowerPoints are good, but they are not the primary one will have to be experiential. It is when you're experiencing what a private space is, what is a private this thing. Like supposing I'll give you an example. If you've got a 10-year-old who's touching himself in the living room, right? I will just say private and take him off to the bathroom and put him there. You do it a few times, he will begin to understand that this, what I was doing is private and the bathroom is private. PowerPoints, they are great, but they are supportive stuff. It's the experiential that really teaches them about private spaces, private acts, private times. Okay? But ये मत सोचना अनुपमा कि बोलता नहीं है तो समझ कम है. The two are not related.
Yeah, many times he surprises us. Even my boy surprises us.
If you believe, if you got to believe first, right? आपको believe करना होगा that he understands and go from that. Okay?
Yeah, ma'am, I'll try to keep that in mind.
Mary, with your permission, actually language has got two parts. One is receptive, another is expressive. And we always judge the language of a person, the ability of a person in language by the expressive language.
Yes.
So that thing should be removed. You might be having you might be having a lot of vocabulary, a lot of understanding, but you don't use everything. And while we are listening, it means others don't have expressive language. So we express only once we have a need. हमको कुछ बोलना, हम तभी बोलते हैं जब हमको कुछ चाहिए. तो नंबर 1. नंबर 2 के डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन उनको हम दे सकते हैं, जैसे अभी मेरी जी ने बताया आपको. Then we can use AACs, argumentative alternative communication. What he is using, तो वो हम यूज कर सकते हैं. उसके अलावा प्रैक्टिकली जैसे उन्होंने दिखा एक्सपीरियंशियल, कि उनको अनुभव करा सकते हैं कि भाई हमने कैसे कराया, वो मेरे जी आपको बता चुके हैं. तो बाकी जो भी हम कर रहे हैं वहाँ रनिंग कमेंट्री हमारी चालू रहनी चाहिए. एज ए काउंसलर, एज ए गाइड, whatever, as an educator, whatever, as a counselor, whatever we are doing, the running commentary should be there. So maybe not today, tomorrow, day after a week, he'll start understanding, because he'll get new vocabulary, and you get some time to register the new vocabulary. नई vocabulary register होने में हमारे पास में कुछ टाइम लगता है, कि whatever we have been doing during the last 3 days, all is now registered in our brain. तो जब तक इसको हम 1-2 बार रिपीट नहीं करेंगे, तब तक वो हमारे पास में रजिस्टर नहीं होगा. तो वो बच्चे के साथ में जब भी आप करते हैं, तो आपको रनिंग कमेंट्री चालू रखनी है. थैंक यू वेरी मच. कनिका जी.
Yeah, one thing which I have experienced, Mary ma'am, I don't have experience like you.
Oh, you have a lot of experience.
मेरे को भी
ऐसा मत बोलो.
नहीं, मेरे को भी नहीं है इतना.
उतना नहीं है, बट
very modest.
मैंने जो एक्सपीरियंस किया है, कभी कभी जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं वो हमें भी चौंका देते हैं, कि हम उसको कहते हैं कि उसको पावर पॉइंट से नहीं पढ़ा सकते, या ये नहीं कर सकते, वो नहीं कर सकते. आई यूज्ड टू डू द लॉट ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंट, कि अच्छा चलो ये एडवांस चीज वो कर सकते हैं कि नहीं कर सकते. पता चलता है कि वो हमसे ज्यादा जानते हैं. हमेशा मैं तो यही देखा हूं, वो हमसे ज्यादा जानते हैं. अगर हम कभी भी एज वन, I'll give you the real example. हम लोग एक मॉर्निंग में सचेतन स्टार्ट किए हुए हैं, और 1-1.5 साल हो गया. And this is the prayer and sharing the thoughts and everything. So initially it was said by the parents and teachers कि अरे ये बच्चे कहाँ समझेंगे ये सेल्फ की बातें और सेल्फ एक्चुअलाइजेशन की बातें, ऐसी बातें वैसी बातें. तो पता नहीं मेरे मन में एक आंसर आया कि ओके, करने दो, जो भी करते हैं डेली हम लोग कुछ बोलेंगे तो हो सकता है कुछ सीख ले. एंड मैम, आफ्टर अ ईयर और मे बी 2-4 महीने के बाद वहां से जो क्वेश्चंस आते हैं वो इतने अच्छे क्वेश्चंस होते हैं गुप्ता जी से, कि बड़े ही
एक तो जो उनके अंदर इनिशिएशन जो होता है ना, कि कोई चीज को इनिशिएट करना, वो एक इनिशिएशन की आदत उनके अंदर पड़ गई ना. नंबर लाइक मींस इन अवर हाउसेज, हमारा 3 साल का या 4 साल का ग्रैंडसन या बेटा आकर के कहता है, मम्मी मेरे को इतनी देर हो गई आपसे पानी मांगते हुए, आपने मेरे को पानी अभी तक नहीं दिया. हाउ कैन ही यूज सच टाइप ऑफ सेंटेंसेस? बिकॉज़ ही हैज बीन लिसनिंग फ्रॉम हिज फादर. घर में हम बोलते हैं लेडीज के साथ में, घर में अपनी मम्मी के साथ में या वाइफ के साथ में ऐसे बोलते हैं, तो उसने वो सुना और वहां से उसने ये पिकअप किया और वो बोल दिया. तो एज ए टीचर, एज ए काउंसलर, एज ए पेरेंट, हमारे को उनको लैंग्वेज देते रहना है. और ये सिर्फ चिल्ड्रन विद ऑटिज्म के साथ में नहीं है, चिल्ड्रन विद इंटेलेक्चुअल एंड डेवलपमेंट डिसेबिलिटीज की हम बात कर रहे हैं, तो चिल्ड्रन विद आईडी जो है, इंटेलेक्चुअल डिसेबिलिटी है, उनके पास में भी वोकैबुलरी बहुत कम होती है, उनके पास में भी एक्सप्रेसिव लैंग्वेज बहुत कम होती है, रिसेप्टिव लैंग्वेज का भी हमको कोई भरोसा नहीं होता है. तो वो लैंग्वेज टेस्ट अवेलेबल है, हम लैंग्वेज टेस्ट करा करके पता लगा सकते हैं कि व्हाट एज ही इज हैज, कि देयर आर लैंग्वेज टेस्ट अवेलेबल, और वो लैंग्वेज टेस्ट से हम पता लगा सकते हैं कि वो किस एज, किस लेवल, किस एज की उसकी लैंग्वेज है. तो हम अपने आप को वहां ला करके उसको समझा सकते हैं.
There's somebody, Kanika.
Kanika madam.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
You know, your talk was very thought-provoking. I never thought on these grounds, but now some questions are coming up. How to like how much information to share, because you know kids come with different age groups, so we cannot make them sit all of them together. Everybody has their own capacity, or maybe age appropriate information should be shared. So how much information to be shared, like how to decide? as a parent or a professional?
So information on
Sex or sexual, education, sex education.
so it depends on the age of the child. Like when they're very young, they start asking questions about sex. Then you give simpler explanations. As they're older, then you can tell them, when they're adults or not even adults, when they're late teenagers,
Hmm.
talk to them about, sex and how, how sex is something that can be pleasurable and how sex can also lead to babies. And, you have very nice books that have illustrations.
Can you name some books, like people like me, we don't have that resource?
I will look up and I will get back to you. Offhand, I can't remember. I'll make a note of it. Okay. That, shows even the reproductive parts and all that very nicely illustrated way, and especially good for persons with disabilities. I'm going to find out the name and give it to you. Offhand yaad nahi aa raha hai, but
Sure,
I'll
ma'am.
give it. Okay?
I have one more question. Like we're talking about sex education, we are talking about masturbation, but sometimes we show affection to our kids like kissing on their lips.
Yeah.
And we don't tell them what are the boundaries. So they're
Yeah.
going out and kissing just to show affection. They're just kissing people or liking somebody, and they're going and kissing and hugging. So how to tell them, who is a stranger, and we don't do it, and
Right.
even not to all family members, we are not going to go and kiss and hug.
Yeah.
So that is something, because there's no black and white thing.
Yeah.
Some people kiss kids ko bachcho ko, so how to make them understand?
See, I'll give a quick answer to this. आप जो बोले हैं ना, उसमें दो चीज है. एक है is about kissing, going and kissing people on the lips. The other one is about strangers. Now there are two things that one is that we do this whole circle of strangers and circle of close people and strangers. It's a very visual way of helping them understand. The closest people in my family, and then the next level, which are my cousins, grandparents, etc. And then the next level, which would be my teachers, etc. So it's a very visual way में सिखाया जा सकता है. It's very clear and they get it. वो तो एक है. The other thing is about आप जो बोल रहे kissing on the lip. The thing is that we got to do what we do. हम typical बच्चे के साथ क्या करते हैं? How till what age do we let our children come and kiss us on the lips? क्या होता है, if the child has a disability, we let them do things that we won't let my non-disabled child do. Okay. So वहां पर confusion आता है, right? So if the child is 7 years old, by then we are not kissing our mothers on the lips. We will do it exactly the way we do it हमारे typical बच्चों के साथ. So then, if when they come, just don't let them kiss you on the lip. Just turn around and say kiss on the cheek. I'll give you an example of this young man we had, जो हमारे पास जब आया था. Payal may have seen him because this was in Jasola. I can see Payal there suddenly. So हमारे पास जब आया था, he was an adult, okay, और he had this habit of hugging everybody. सबको जाकर hug करेगा, and telling him no, don't hug, ठीक बात नहीं है, मत करो, you're an adult. It didn't work. We did a social story, but what really worked is वो जैसे आता था, we knew वो hug करेगा, हम पहले से ऐसे हाथ आगे कर देते थे, and we do this, right? So then he'd shake hands, and then the minute he shook hands, we'd say good morning, or we'd say hi. We make it really reinforcing. So then this whole thing of greeting people by hugging aste aste chala gaya, because we just did that. So there are simple, like I said, experiential learning. बोल कर ये करो वो करो, ये ठीक है वो ठीक नहीं है, is very confusing because it's not black and white. हम बोलते हैं kissing on the lips is bad, ठीक है? But in the movies he's watching people kissing on the lips, and they are not always husband and wife, they are lovers, they are boyfriends. तो हम जब बोलते हैं ना, हमें सोचना पड़ेगा that हम जो बात बोल रहे हैं, is it really true कि kissing on the lips is bad? If I say hugging is bad, but what happens when mama and daddy are hugging? What happens when mama is hugging my little sister? So you can't say that ye bad hai or wo good hai. Nothing is good or bad. It's very relative. So ideally, do it experientially, and the child will learn. And make it very visual, make it very concrete. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am, very well. Thank you so much. Yeah.
अनिका जी, आपको रिडायरेक्ट करना है जैसे बरुआ जी ने कहा।
हाँ जी।
रिप्लेस मतलब कि जो हैबिट है उसको रिप्लेस करना है गुड हैबिट से, और वो गुड हैबिट क्या होनी है वो आपको सोचना है। तो इससे रिप्लेसमेंट ऑफ अ हैबिट।
ओके।
इन 2 words I'll say.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Payal ji, please.
Yeah, I just have a word. Firstly, thank you.
Hi, nice to see you.
Lovely to see you, and lovely to hear your wonderful session.
Thank you.
Always very practical and hands-on, as you are. So wonderful. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Also, I've been very long in special ed myself, and it's so wonderful that these topics are finally coming to the fore. It's
Wonderful.
very much required and very needed, and it's so good to see. I just wanted to say that, you know, we have to learn when it comes to teaching anybody anything, whether it's self-advocacy or anything. We have to learn we have to teach them the way they will learn. That is the primary fact, you know. So just to take an example, I have this student. He's a wonderful young man who is a CP child, and I said child, sorry, but he's a CP, and you know, he cannot use any of his limbs, so he is wheelchair bound. He cannot use his hands or his legs, and his speech is also affected. So I teach him English, and you know, his mom told me that, you know, he wants to deal with you directly, so I am out of the picture.
Yeah.
I said, sure, why not? He's an adult now. So
Exactly.
I won't talk to you. I'm going to talk to him about my classes. So, you know, I used to get these voice messages from him that, Payal ma'am, my class is at 4 o'clock today, or whatever. He used to send me a voice message. And I was replying in type, 4 o'clock is fine. See you, types. And then he would send another voice message saying, Payal ma'am, please send me a voice message to confirm. Then I realized that, you know, it's so difficult for him to read that little thing, that little message I type. And it's so easy for him to hear a voice message.
Yeah.
Then I realized that either I send you know, a picture reaction, or I should send a voice message myself. So, you know, now we are communicating so well because we are communicating through voice messages, and there's no misunderstanding. So he had his class today and he said, you've not taken my class. I said, don't you forget, I have a seminar today. So all this I had to send in voice message. But, you know, it's so simple and easy, and yes, you can be surprised at how much you can achieve.
Yes,
if the
absolutely.
wavelength is established. Yeah, thank you.
अब हमको गुप्ता जी हमें जाना होगा, बिकॉज़ हम आलोक को बोले
एक मिनट
अच्छा,
कि पायल जी, इज वेरी वेरी नेसेसरी टू चूज द राइट मॉडलिटी, कि हम कौन सी मॉडलिटी चूज कर रहे हैं, तो बच्चा किस मॉडलिटी में कंफर्टेबल है, और ये हमारे सामने 2-3 दिन बात आई है। तो मैरी जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर टेकिंग आउट टाइम।
थैंक यू सो मच गुप्ता जी।
जो आपने जो ना, मतलब क्या कहते हैं, डाउन टू अर्थ, वो जो हम ग्रास रूट लेवल की बात करते हैं ना, बिल्कुल ग्रास रूट की डाउन टू अर्थ आपने जो बात करी है, तो डाउन टू अर्थ जो आपने बात करी है ना, एकदम बिल्कुल जमीन से जुड़ी हुई, जो हम रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में अपने देखते हैं। तो थैंक यू वेरी मच।
थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू।